Hello everyone, welcome to Chasing a Murder, and today I just want to do at least one more video on this horrific news covering this guy by the name of Rush Stockton. He and four other passengers were on this Ocean Crest vehicle or vessel known as the Titan. So it's a submersible. It is a submersible that they are trying to break the laws and understanding of engineering physics and reach depths carrying higher volumes of people than ever before. Just remember that even submarines for the military don't usually go below 1,000 feet, much less 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000, and down to 13,000 feet is where the Titanic lies. Most people are familiar with the Titanic, and it seems that this guy, the CEO of Ocean Crest, is big time obsessed with the Titanic. And guess what? I want to share a few news sources that I found that I thought were quite interesting. So make sure you check their full entire videos out after watching this one. So this man is so obsessed with Titanic. He says a lot of it is about seeing things in the future, like building cities under the ocean, doing scientific research for the future of the children and the ocean, which doesn't sound like it to me, and documenting the deterioration of the Titanic year after year. So these are the things we're going to learn a little bit more background on this guy whose submersible on Thursday, June 18th, dove to the depths of 12,000 feet before it finally imploded, losing contact with everyone at the HQ. You can check out my earlier videos if you're not familiar with the story, but we'll touch a little bit on what happened with that implosion here and there. But first, let's go ahead and go over some background of this guy, Rush. Now, we learned that this guy said some really curious things in my last few uploads, but there's other people, like the guy that made the movie Titanic with Leonardo DiCaprio. Like many of us, we're kind of noticing some very strange likenesses when it comes to laws and rules of a captain of this ship. You got to remember that this submersible was breaking a lot of rules. We covered that in the videos before. And he mentioned how he would like to be remembered for pushing those innovations. Okay, so I'll shut up. Let's go ahead and listen to what this guy says.
I'm struck by the similarity of the Titanic disaster itself, where the captain was repeatedly warned about ice ahead of his ship, and for a very similar tragedy where warnings went unheeded to take place at the same exact site.
That is very interesting. Imagine this guy has spent his entire life focused on the sunken Titanic. He has been obsessed with building innovations to keep him at that site. But Inside Edition found out something even more interesting. This guy had loved Titanic. We know this. He was obsessed with it. But he's so obsessed that he might have married into the people that had history with this ship. Rush is married to a woman by the name of Wendy, and she is actually the great-great-granddaughter of a wealthy American couple that went down on the Titanic together. Their names are Isidore and Ida Strauss.
The Strausses were co-owners of the fabled Macy's department store. As seen in the movie, Ida refuses to leave the doomed ship on a lifeboat without her husband.
No! We've been together for 40 years, and where you go, I go.
So how interesting is this? So you got this guy, his whole life is focused on innovating, building new technologies that are breaking all the rules. All of this to be down there 13,000 feet below the surface in an unforgivable environment in one of the most mysterious places on this planet Earth.
We're now approaching the forward ratings at the very prow of the Titanic. And we can see more rusticles draped over those railings and a small little bamboo coral pointing forward.
An Everett-based company just finished building a submarine that they'll take to the Titanic this summer.
It's going to be amazing. It's part of a project to survey the wreckage of the ship. Como's Gabe Cohen got an up-close look today. He has more.
Pat, how long would it take you to take these off?
Our deep dive starts at sea level in the Ocean Gate workshop.
Cutting this a little bit.
Where the team is putting the final touches on Titan, their most advanced submersible yet.
Brings a tear to my eye.
That's Director of Engineering Tony Nissen.
It's a lot of pain to get here. I saw it was a lot of pain to get here. We did this extremely fast. Their goal was to build a vessel that can dive 3,800 meters for a mission to the Titanic. Titan is headed there in June. It can dive 4,000 meters, thanks in part to its carbon fiber structure. The strength, weight, and buoyancy that we get out of it exceeds really any other material out there.
Tony says this frame will feel about 150 million pounds of pressure near the ocean floor, but the team inside won't feel a thing. A team of 5 will squeeze into Titan for each dive and view the wreckage on these monitors. To fly the vessel, the pilot uses a PlayStation controller. Over 6 weeks of dives, laser scanners and high-def cameras will map the Titanic and its decay over the past century. It's part of a larger project to study the effects of shipwrecks on our oceans.
And this is critically important when you realize that there are tens of thousands of shipwrecks from World War II, many of which sank with toxic chemicals and fuel oil on board.
The final pieces will be put on Titan this week. Then practice dives begin as they count down to their big descent.
Very excited.
In Everett, Gabe Cohen.
Cameron, who built his own sub to explore the Titanic that has been to the wreckage more than 30 times, believes the clues are lying in that debris 1,600 feet from the Titanic's bow, including its nose cone and both ends of the capsule.
That carbon fiber composite cylinder is now just in very small pieces, and it's all rammed into one of the hemispheres. So it's pretty clear that that's what failed.
Industry experts had warned OceanGate's experimental approach, which included using that carbon fiber construction, could lead to catastrophe. But CEO Stockton Rush pushed forward with his sub without certification, what they call classing. Oceanographer Bob Ballard, who discovered the Titanic wreckage, says that was a fatal mistake.
We've made thousands and thousands and thousands of dives with other countries as well to these depths and have never had an incident. So this is the first time, and the smoking gun is this is the first time by a submarine that wasn't classed.
In videos like this one, Stockton Rush insisted the Titan was made of materials that could adapt to the extreme pressures of the deep, like this acrylic window.
It's acrylic, plexiglass, and it is 7 inches thick. When we go to the Titanic, it will squeeze in about 3/4 of an inch. It just deforms. And acrylic's great because it squeezes in, and before it cracks or fails, it starts to crackle. And so you get huge warning if it's going to fail.
Tonight.
That's fine and good, but what happens if you're 13,000 feet down and that crackle happens? What does that mean? It must mean, well, you're about to die. So anyways, there's this other couple, which was a father and son couple, that were planning to go down. We're thinking about buying tickets, but were replaced by the other father and son team. They share a few emails where the salesman and Rush is trying to talk them into going down as if he's kind of desperate. They also share how they felt that they could have been the ones that were on the news right now.
Vegas says for months, Stockton Rush was trying to sell him and his son 2 seats, offering to knock $100,000 off the $250,000 price. Rush texting, last minute price is $150,000 per person. When Jay told him his son had safety concerns, Rush responding, I'm happy to have a video call with him. Curious what the uninformed would say the danger is and whether it's real or imagined.
He drank his own Kool-Aid. He was passionate about it. It didn't come from a place of malice. It didn't come from a place of greed. He just, had this vision, had this belief, and wanted the world to share it with him.
He says those seats instead went to another father and son, Shahzada Dawood and 19-year-old Suleiman.
And here's the thing. This kid, this young 19-year-old, was terrified about going down. It sounds like there was tons of people who were terrified of going on this trip. Now remember, when they were searching for the Titan, they suggested that they heard banging in intervals. But according to some information that's coming out now, the Navy and Coast Guard say that they were able to determine that there was a loud noise at about the same time that this Titan lost communication with its HQ.
In Geo, we now know the Navy had detected a possible implosion on Sunday around the same time the sub lost contact, and you're learning those families were given that information.
So families were kind of chimed in that they thought perhaps that it may not end good. It makes you wonder what they were trying to hide, not sharing it with the public.
That's right, Whit. A defense official tells us that at some point during that search, the families were told about that sound from the Navy detection system, but that is not definitive proof, they say, and so the Coast Guard, they kept searching anyway.
Which I was glad that they did continue to search just in case, because we don't always know the outcome, as it doesn't happen the way that we expect it to every single time. And it's nice to believe that there is hope. Again, you have people that are saying that he doesn't do this with malice. He doesn't do this for greed. He actually helps educate people with the Titan. He does have good things that he's done. But his self-ego, well, that's a different story.
I'd like to be remembered as an innovator. I think it was General MacArthur said, "You're remembered for the rules you break." And, I've broken some rules to make this. I think I've broken them with logic and good engineering behind me. The carbon fiber and titanium, there's a rule you don't do that. Well, I did.
So what it seems like is this guy, he said that he didn't want to have to deal with dealing with, some people have published, over 50-year-old white guys. You know why? Because most older white guys are a little bit more hazard awake. Instead, he said he wanted to go with a younger group. And there's a reason why most times you see older men and women leading in their industries. This is because they have seen more, they dealt with more, they understand the consequences of making a mistake. There's a reason why they say when you hit 40, you're hitting your wiser years. But Rush, well, he was wanting a younger, open-minded group of people that would do what he wanted them to do. That's basically what he's saying. People who would bend the rules and not have a second thought about it. And now those engineers, well, they got to live with this monster they created. And who's going to want to hire someone that could care less about other people and their lives? Besides governments, just saying. So here's a little bit more audio of Rush sharing his thoughts.
When I started the business, one of the things you'll find, there are other sub-operators out there, but they typically have gentlemen who are ex-military submariners, and you'll see a whole bunch of 50-year-old white guys. I wanted our team to be younger, to be inspirational, and I'm not going to inspire a 16-year-old to go pursue marine technology.
So you heard it from the horse's mouth. What does that even mean, other than he knows that it's mostly over 50 white guys that are building these things, and that they are going to tell him, you can't do it this way because it'll kill people. And here it is. This is where he says, we can train people to do this. We can make younger people break the rules.
We can train someone to pilot the sub. We use a game controller, so anybody can drive the sub.
You steer the ship with a controller, with a joystick from a gaming system, a home gaming system.
There's special training just to learn how to get into an escape suit, in and out of that. It's a very tough thing to get into these kind of warm weather coveralls that will float you if you have to bail from a ship or escape from a submarine. Beyond that, no real training. When we went down, there were communication problems on every trip I've taken. Of the 4 separate dives I've taken with Ocean Gate, every time there was a problem with at least sporadically communicating with the surface. And again, I don't think that's their fault as much as just that's the nature of the beast. When you're going 1,000 feet or 13,000 feet underwater, you're going to lose contact for a while.
So you kind of heard from a client there. He said, yeah, we had a few problems, but when you're that deep, you're going to lose communication. That's to be expected. But what about the skeptical media guy who actually took a ride on this thing?
Before we went, we had never seen the sub. We didn't know anything about it. There's very little information on the website. I didn't know at that point that you drive the thing with an Xbox game controller. I didn't know that the ballast was, used construction pipes. And then you get the tour, and Stockton Rush, the designer of the sub, the CEO, explains to you that all of this stuff, the lights and the handles and the propellers, these are off-the-shelf parts because, well, not only are they inexpensive, but they're tried and true. They're mass-produced. The part we care about is the pressure vessel, the capsule where the people are. And that he designed with NASA and the University of Washington, and that, he says, is as locked down as it gets. His exact words were, everything else can fail, the lights can go out, the propellers can stop, but you will still be alive. You are bolted in from the outside. There are 18 bolts in a circle around the hatch. And by the way, they only fasten 17 of them. The 18th one is way up high, and they say there's really no mathematical difference. So you're right. The really nightmarish scenario is that they are alive at the surface, bobbing away, running out of air, and unable to get out.
Indeed, the whole thing is a nightmare. As he mentioned, they are bolted in, and it's not going to be unbolted without a very powerful tool. But we learned that wasn't the scenario anyways, that they had imploded immediately once they hit that certain depth, and they lost communication with their headquarters. So do you guys think that he knew exactly what he was doing and how dangerous it was? Isn't it odd as some of the things that he said in the past? Or is it just coincidence? You got to think about it when you compare what he says to what happened this day. There's definitely a few red flags. Perhaps he just died doing what he loved, not taking into account the warnings that all his fellow submariners warned him about. I'm going to leave you guys with this very interesting interview that I found that he done a few years back. So make sure that you guys like and subscribe if you like what you see. And make sure you comment your thoughts. And we want to send our love and our support to the families who have people that were involved in this tragic event.
Huge. There's so much life in the ocean to be discovered. So it's important that it isn't just something that the few researchers or the billionaires who have subs can go do. Everybody needs to understand this. Even people in Iowa who may not get to the ocean need to understand that half the oxygen they breathe comes from the ocean.
Right. And even more so, the importance is for kids, right? Our future?
Yes. I wanted to be go to space, and I really wanted to be an explorer. And had I known what there was in the ocean to explore, had I not been told when I was growing up that there isn't life below where sunlight doesn't reach, I probably would have been a marine biologist.
Oh, that would be so cool. Well, you are already contributing to marine biology, so What's the future of Earth exploration, do you believe? I mean, like you said, so much of the ocean is not tapped. How do we get there?
Well, and that's what's sort of amazing. And people are told that 3/4 of the planet is the ocean. Well, that's in 2 dimensions. In 3 dimensions, if you look at the livable volume, it's 98% of the planet. There's 5, think of it, 5 Earths worth of exploration to be done in the ocean. There's life all the way through the water column. We see the most bizarre creatures. And to me, that's where we need to be focusing is, not only to understand what's happening in the ocean and how it's going to affect climate and the like, but that's where we're going to have cities. And that's where people are going to be. They're going to be down there exploring. Maybe there's some environmentally sensitive mining that would go on, but working on fish stocks and doing research down there. To me, we'll have cities underwater before we have them up in space.
On the moon?
Yeah.
That is so cool. And there are so many incredible minerals down there when you get the ocean water and the magma coming up that can be so useful, right?
Yes, I mean, not just minerals, but energy. And then you have undiscovered, things, people like to talk about treasure. It's been said that 1/4 of all the gold that was mined is on the bottom of the ocean. Because when it was coming from the New World, you filled it full of gold until you had no freeboard. bad wave and you're out.
Wow.
So there's just amazing things.
We don't have much time left. Of course, I could talk to you about this all day, but I just wanted to know, what were your first feelings and thoughts when you saw the Titanic for the very first time?
It was, I didn't really have a chance to absorb it until I got to the surface, back to the ship. Because when I was there, I had P.H. Nargeolet, who's an expert on the Titanic, and he and I were navigating while all the mission specialists were in the dome looking at it. And so I'm just trying to make sure we don't touch it, we stay off, we get great pictures, we get great light. When I got to the surface was this amazing thing, because it had been 12 years I've been working to do this, and to get there was great.
I remember, I think it was 1984, 1985, when the Titanic was first found, right?
Yes.
And the pictures that emerged of all the things that were down there, are those things still down there? Nobody's grabbing these things, are they?
Well, there was some salvage work that was done over the last 20 years. I don't think any salvage has happened in at least more than a decade. So a company did get salvage rights. They pulled up 5,500 artifacts, which you can see at various places. But there's still a lot down there. You still see cups and wine bottles and some personal effects. It's just amazing. I mean, as you go through the debris field. And then you have all these creatures living on them now. So you'll see a piece of cement from the Turkish bath, and there'll be a coral that's been growing on it for the last 100 years.
Oh my gosh, this is so incredible. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. I never